So yeah, I guess I'm working the steps of NA, and I'm just having a few, I guess, epiphanies. And you see, I guess the thing about it is that I have not been a spiritual person ever. I've turned my back on my spirituality. I grew up in a Christian, well, I went to an Anglican school, and just believed in God because there was no other alternative really presented to me. And then a whole heap of bad shit happened to me, and I sort of I rejected the idea of God. Also because I'm a scientist at heart, it just seemed like a whole heap of hocus pocus, spiritual thing. We are just a happy accident that we're like ants on a rock, why do we have to have a fucking higher power, of God? What makes us so fucking special that there is this sort of higher power, but then I guess I grapple with the whole spirituality and a higher power thing. But then I came to the realization that, well, what these people were saying with this AA, it works or whatever, and it does work. People have achieved long-lasting sobriety, and they talk about being an addict, and it's a spiritual disease, a spiritual problem, and it's just a bit of a big coincidence. And from the very point that I turned my back on my spirituality is when I sort of started to become an addict, and they talk about it being a spiritual wound or a spiritual problem being an addict, and so I guess the whole heap of coincidences that have led me to this point in my life, and indeed even led me to my first NA meeting. But the problem is that in my older years, I guess I've turned my back on outright stark atheism, and I've become, I guess, more of an agnostic, well, maybe there is something, but we don't know what the fucking thing is. So, how can I subscribe to something when I don't know exactly what this higher power is? But then I was thinking, well, maybe humans, it's beyond us. We're not supposed to know what the higher power is, but there are signs that there perhaps is a higher power. All of these coincidences and things, that you can't explain through normal charts, or it's difficult to explain without there being the existence of something that's driving all of this, and so I guess I've started a spiritual journey, and only until this point I'm starting this spiritual journey, and actually from going from someone who's just turned my back on the notion of that anything like this exists, that it's all just hocus pocus. It's been the point of my healing, and I guess the point that I'm coming to is that I had the opportunity tonight to go and get work as a prostitute, and indeed then I did think very seriously about going and buying drugs, and using, and I guess I then then it just became the flow of the evening was just such that going to a meeting and things just panned out, it just the logistics of it all just panned out, and maybe that's part of surrendering myself to a higher power. I could have jostled and definitely not gone to the meeting and stayed back and in Yamba and seen this client and gotten the money, and then I probably would have been off to Mullumbimby, to get drugs, but the flow of it was that the client wasn't ready. He said, no, maybe not till later. And then I was like, well, you know what, I'll go to the meeting. And since coming to that meeting, I've come to a few conclusions. Firstly, when I think about using, I had this real moment. I feel grounded, and I'm in touch with who I am, and I actually like the person that I am. I like the person I am when I'm sober. I'm starting to feel comfortable with who I am, and I think about who I am when I'm high, and I no longer want to be that person. I no longer find comfort in that, and the search for productivity, that's usually why I would use, but I'm so kind kind of inspired by the work that's happening inside of me, by this spiritual journey, that I want to go home and write about it, you know. And I don't feel the need to use in order to do that. In fact, I think when I do use, I probably produce worse work than when I'm completely straight, to be honest with you. And I feel that so the desire, the light inside of me, the need, the jonesing to really get high is no longer there, because I feel grounded and I feel happy with who I am. I don't need to be someone else, you know. I'm starting to feel comfortable in my own skin, you know, and that's a big thing, you know. The more I think about it and the more I do the work, the less of a warm blanket that getting high seems to be, and then the more of a scary thing that is, and I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And it's not even that I'm thinking about the negative consequences, you know. It's about me being wanting to be true to who I am, but also thinking about the moralistic sides of things and how that's going to hurt other people, you know what I mean? Like, so for instance, even though I don't necessarily have to tell my partner that, you know, I've played up, I've gone out and I've gotten drugs, well, I'm still going to know that that's what I did, you know. And that for me wouldn't have bothered me before. I would have happily gone and done it and lied, and then, you know, and probably my partner would have known that I was high as a kite, because he can always tell, and then that's going to further erode what is a very fucking good relationship. But it's also hurting him, and I've got to think about him too. And when we do the work, when we start to do the work and work the steps, they talk about that when you try to heal yourself, or you're thinking about yourself, that's not you doing the work, you know. The healing comes when you help others, you know. And my partner, I need to help him, you know, and that's thinking about him and what he needs, and there's something fucking powerful in that, you know. There really is. Like the other night, I was talking to him about how I was grappling with this higher power, you know, and that sort of thing, and he got really angry at me, and, you know, really angry, and I stomped my feet and had a tantrum. Said, no, you're not listening to me, you know. Why are you arguing with me? This is my recovery, you know. This is about me. And it wasn't until the next day when I was listening to an AA talk, like on the podcast, that they talked about this, you know, doing the work is when you helping other people, and I was like, for fuck's sake, man, I get it. Like, you know, why didn't I just stop and examine where that was coming from him, and not, instead of making it all about me, I should have just said, you know, like, well, let's see, why are you angry? Where's this coming from? Do you want to talk about your feelings and thoughts on the matter, you know? Or, you know, and I sense a resistance from him now, like, you know, he's wanted me to get clean and to really sort of like get my shit together, and I just sense that there's a resistance within him. He's not liking it that I'm getting into the AA shit. It's almost like he's threatened or afraid of it. Like I was at a meeting and he seemed to be almost jealous, or I don't know what. And so I think I've got to examine that, because this is a fucking amazingly empowering, this has been an enlightening few days, a life-changing experience, you know. Because I can get to the point where I no longer fucking want to use drugs, and let me tell you, I battle with it still, like every day, you know. Today it was just, you know, yep, you know, and, you know, because it's the easy way out, you know, it's the easy way. They talk about this feeling, and I so identify with it, this feeling of restlessness and discontent and irritability, and this not liking being in your own skin. These are the symptoms of being an addict, and we feel if we can just get that warm blanket, that substance, and take it, it does, it makes you feel better. You get that warm buzz, you know, and it's comforting, you know. But what I'm trying to talk about is that, I guess, for me now, the feeling of that, it does nothing for me, and I'm not saying I'm there yet, But I'm starting to see that the more of a spiritual journey that I go on, and if I'm content in my own self, I am. The thought of being high is just not alluring at all. I don't want to do that. I'm teetering, you know, and then I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, you know, it might be nice, you know, to get some beer. Like, no, you know what, I'm not going to give in to that right now, you know. I am. So I guess the other thing too, is the prostitution. Well, that was something that I used to be able to do, you know, when I was an addict, you know, and I could morally justify it. And now, I guess becoming more in tune with my spirituality and that sort of thing, it just doesn't sit right with me to go and fuck a man for money, you know. It doesn't feel right. I don't think I can do it, you know, even if it means that, you know, the thing for me is I've got a couple $100 in the bank now, you know, and that's okay. I can get petrol, I've got money for food, and that's all I need. The only reason to go and prostitute myself would be to get that extra couple of $100 so I can get that half ball of gear, you know. And I'm making a conscious decision that I don't want to do it, but that's not enough. I realise that, you know, when you do the work, it's fine to say, well, you know, I'm not going to give in, and you know, I'm just not going to take drugs, but that doesn't solve the whole problem. And I get it. The problem is the spiritual one, you know, because you can abstain and abstain and abstain, but still have that irritability and that discomfort and that unrest that drives you to use, you know. And today, for the very first time, I actually had a sense that I don't have that and I don't need to use, and it's empowering, man. I never thought that I would ever reach that point, you know. I just don't. And the only thing that's holding me back now is my partner, because I can sense that he is really uncomfortable with this, and it's potentially because he's not ready to give up using, you know. That's the thing, he's not ready to give up using. I can sense that in him, you know. And I feel like my journey is to help him. We were thrown together for some reason, you know, we were. And I think me throwing the NA shit down his throat when he's not ready, it's not the right thing to do. It's going to be intimidating for him. And so what I'm trying to gather up in myself, and what I'm trying to find within, is how do I help him? You know? How do I help him? Because I know that if I say to him, well, I'm close to this, I'm not going to use, he's just going to go to prison and use and fuck with them. And so I don't know. Part of it's doing the work, you know, the spiritual work, because I know the answer, right? I do. Like, he needs to learn to connect on a spiritual level with me, and then he won't need to, you know, to use and in order to connect, you know, on an intimate level, you know. Is my feeling. I hope this is not. Yeah. The speed limit is here. I thought I'd go through the speed camera again as I'm talking away. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to get my thoughts out there now, because I mean, I feel like I've come up. I don't know. I don't want to get lulled into this sense of, yeah, you know, I've got this, I've got it now, because I don't, you know. But I feel like I am making some really fucking big leaps and bounds here, you know. And I was sitting in the room with the rest of the addicts there today, right? And I was just going, yeah, like they're all saying, yeah, you know, I really want to use at this point, and I just don't. And they all sort of seem to be stuck at this point where they're like, you know, they're not at that spiritual point that they haven't done the steps, I think, is the thing, and whether they're capable. I think some people just are not capable of it, because it requires quite a bit of understanding, I guess. Maybe they will get there, or maybe they will continue to live out their lives and just be restless, and I hope for that. I hope that's it's not the case for them, you know. I really do, because I know that space. They're not well, and it's fucked, you know. Like it really is fucked. Fuck's not the space to be. I mean, there's so much to this that I mean, you really have to be a student to be able to do the NA or AA. So it's quite a lot of it goes into it, you know. I mean, they were pretty smart people who can come up with all this shit, you know. But anyways, I don't know. And then I get to a point where, yeah, you know, I've made a few revelations or whatever. Revelations, had a few epiphanies, and then I'm exhausted. You know, like I do need to have a glass of wine, but wine is not. I know they say you shouldn't drink, but it's not triggering for me. It's like I can have a couple of glasses and stop, and then just go to bed. It's not until I have gear that's when I start to drink excessively. You see, but it doesn't go the other way. Maybe I will come to a point then where I stop drinking as well. But at the moment, it's early days. I don't know. I think I'm doing well. No, I do. I think I am. But it's I don't want to be congratulated or anything either. You know, it's not hard work. It's just you've just got to get yourself to a meeting, and you've got to get yourself to the literature, and you've got to get yourself to listening to it. And I guess it's not going to be for everyone, you know. But for me, the process cognitively was, well, you know, they say that, I mean, the AA and how that all sort of came about was that, you know, that they were a group of 100 addicts that had successfully, or alcoholics that had successfully given up booze, and they were these people that were probably much like me, had been proclaimed to be the worst alcoholics in the world, like, you know, the worst, in and out of rehab, for so much time. I think, I don't know, man. It rings true with me, you know, that I think it does work. It has worked. There's evidence there that AA or NA works. You know, it's proven. You know, people, you know, like I said in a room, it's heroin addicts who have been clean, you know, for 37 years or whatever it is. That's a long time. But I think, as I say, yeah, it's an internal change that happens, you know, that you sort of, I don't know. See, not everyone who tries drugs becomes an addict. See, that's the other thing too, you know. So these people would probably, well, granted, yeah. And I think the thing is too, like, so I guess maybe some of my inattentiveness and desire for a stimulant to sort of switch on is probably because I've turned my back on my spirituality and my spiritual self, and therefore I'm becoming attentive, and that's made me sort of drowsy and dopey and you know, pretty hopeless, sort of, you know, yeah, anyway, I don't know, man.